this new lens, the Sigma 135 f1.4 DG Art lens, this is a monster, and it is the third time in 3 months that I have uttered the sentence, Sony should have made this lens. Okay, so the first time I said this is a lens that Sony should have made, it was with the Sigma 300 to 600mm, a fantastic sports lens. The second time that I said it recently is with the Sigma 200mm, another fantastic sports lens. And this, the 135 f1.4, is a fantastic portrait lens. I mean, this is a dream lens for an event or a wedding photographer, but it's also a really great lens for all kinds of shallow depth of field things. I mean, look, check out this picture. This is a bee on the wick of a candle shot handheld, wide open at f1.4 using Sony's Insect Detect autofocus. I mean, this is a crazy image. I don't know what kind of bee that is. I think it's a honeybee. If you know, let me know in the comments below. I'm kind of curious. This is a massive piece of glass, and it's really not a heavy piece of glass either. And it is the widest open 135mm for the Sony platform. This is a great opportunity for Sigma, and it's a great opportunity for Sony shooters because while it would make the most amount of money for Sony if you bought both of their bodies and their lenses, a lot of people buy into the system because they're more affordable and sometimes even better lenses for them than what Sony makes. So what I think Sigma did is they took a look at the market and they're like, man, I think all of these people who are buying Sony cameras want really great lenses, and if we can get some of those customers, we're going to make a lot of money.
Shut up and take my money!
Meanwhile, you get the Nikon and the Canon guys who are not really letting people into their ecosystem. Like, look at this Petapixel article. This is from March of 2024, and we still don't see third-party Canon lenses. So Sigma has really focused narrowly on doing the Sony ecosystem and also their E-mount platform. And I think the results have been spectacular, literally and figuratively. So let's take a look at these pictures of hummingbirds. These hummingbirds come around my house right at dusk. It starts to get dark. They start to load up on sugar for the night. It is really, really a bad condition for most photography. But shooting this wide open at f1.4, I was able to shoot at 1/4000th, 1/8000th of a second fast enough to stop the wings of a hummingbird and still be at around ISO from like 800 to like 1600. That's incredible. I could not do that with any of the other lenses that I own right now. Even the 200mm f2 wouldn't have been able to get as much light gathering as this lens. Okay, so let's do the specs really quickly. This lens has 17 elements in 13 groups, including 2 aspheric elements and 4 FLD, which I think is extra low dispersion. I forget what FLD is. So that is a lot of glass dedicated to make image quality look really great. It's also got a 13 blade aperture, which is really great because it's about 11 blades that you start to see really soft and smooth bokeh. Now let's go back to the hummingbird picture for a second. I will say that one of the things that I've noticed is all the circular balls that the bokeh makes, which are good. I like them. I would prefer a little bit of a smoother bokeh in the background. So as with most super wide open lenses, just be careful of what you have in the background so you can get the best look possible. Now there are some trade-offs. It is not the lightest lens in the world. It's about 1400 grams in the E-mount version, a little bit lighter in the Sony version of the lens, and it is about 50 ounces, which I don't really know how to calculate. Now the size also gives you something else you have to think about. It is a 105mm front end, right? Which means if you want to do a neutral density filter, you're going to need a 105mm neutral density filter. You probably don't have a lot of other lenses with a 105mm front end, which means you're buying new filters just for this lens. The reason you're going to need a neutral density filter is because it's an f1.4 lens, which means if you're trying to shoot in the sunlight, there's often going to be way too much light in order to get a properly exposed image. So neutral density filter, bring it with you at all times. This lens is super fast. It is as fast as anything that I've shot from Sony, which is something I also said about the 200mm and the 300-600mm. Sigma's getting really great at their motors. This has dual HLA, which are their high response linear actuators, and there's one for the front group and one for the back group, which means that the two sections move together in parallel in order to focus quickly, and that means that this lens doesn't have to come out when you focus with it. Okay, Sigma has a lot to love on the design of this lens too. It's not just a fast or a sharp lens. The first thing I love about this is the manual aperture ring. I keep saying this. I think that every pro level lens at least should have a turnable aperture ring. So it's got the turnable aperture ring. It also has a lock for the aperture ring. So if you stick it in the automatic mode, the A at the end of it, you can lock it into place, which means you won't accidentally bump it and change your aperture. So the other thing it has on the other side is the click or declick setting. So this is declicked, and then let me switch this over here and make it clickable, and that's the clickable sound. There's also, of course, an autofocus to manual focus switch on the front, and it's got several of these programmable buttons, one on the top and one on the side for when you're shooting it vertically, and with the Sony system you can program this to do pretty much whatever you want. There's one more thing I wanted to tell you about. So this is an Arca Swiss compatible tripod foot. Fantastic. I think everyone should do that. So you can turn the lens around, obviously, but when you get to this point in the throw, you can take that collar off, which makes it lighter, but it also makes it easier to use if you're doing something like a wedding and you don't want to bring a tripod collar with you. That's great. This is the length of it with the lens hood. It is manageable. It's a very big lens hood, but when you're shooting with something really wide open and something with so much glass in the front of it, you really want to keep the light out of it. Now, there's anti-glare and anti-flare coatings on this, and so the flare will be minimum, but you don't want to have sunlight just coming in while you're trying to expose your shot and take your image. Take your image. Now, it's dust and splash resistant, so I wouldn't sit on the sidelines of a football game in the rain and use this to photograph without a cover, but it will keep out some of the dust and moisture if you're just shooting events or weddings, unless you're outside in a downpour. And now here it is on a Sony camera there, and I'll turn the ring around to the bottom, and this is the whole system. If you shoot the Panasonic E-mount, there's a USB port in here in order to transfer information and do firmware updates. And now here we are. If you're a Sony user, you have these fantastic lens options from Sigma. You've got some really amazing things coming out from Tamron. I just did a review of the Tamron 16 to 30 millimeter, and you can find a link to that up there. And I love that lens too. Now, I love Canon's lenses. I love Nikon's lenses. There are just not enough of them. And I really wish that both of those systems would allow Sigma and Tamron and Viltrox and everybody to just make lenses, because it sells more cameras when there's more lenses available.